Welcome to the Four Voices of Contemplative Discernment with Cynthia Borgeault. She'll be teaching this class with us as its maiden voyage. She hasn't taught this anywhere else yet, so Contemplative Journal is very happy to have Cynthia. And I'd just like to share with our viewers a little bit about what this class involves and this idea of contemplative discernment through the four voices is your original teaching. Will you just describe it a tiny bit?
Sure. Well, it all began when I got outed in an interview in spring of 2014. I was talking with Terry Patton in his Beyond Awakening wonderful series, and he asked me to describe something of my own reaching discernment. You know, discernment is a huge issue in the spiritual paths that every tradition is, well, how do I make this decision? How do I know what's right? How do I know what's wrong? So Terry and I were talking, and I told him a little bit about this method that I've developed over my own on the years called the Four Voices, you know, where I listen to different voices in my being and get their information and then get them into dialogue and get them into consensus. And he said, wow, that's really neat. And he put up his interview, and then immediately people started writing in and saying, oh, we love this method, we want to know more about it, can you teach a course in it? And so I was absolutely thrilled, Kate, when Contemplative Journal, when you came to me and said, well, this sounds interesting, why don't we do a course on it? Because it's maiden work. You know, I worked into how to learn to do this, and I knew more than I knew that I knew. But in putting together the sessions that will be this course, I really had to sit down and think about what it was that I knew, how I knew it, how the pieces worked, and why they worked. So you really allowed me to do some very important inner research and inner work, which will be aired for the first time in this, and I think it's a win-win, because it's new material that hasn't been brought out for audiences before, and what's a better place to do that than in a small upcoming journal that's really building a dedicated clientele of spiritual adventurers.
Well, it's a thrill for us, Cynthia. Your teaching is so profound yet so practical, and this is a great example of that, how you go to the depths and bring in so many great resources that you've developed over the years, but what could be more fundamental than decision making?
Yeah,
that we
exactly.
all go through each in life, and so this idea of listening to the voices builds upon your work with Thomas Keating, your Gurdjieff work,
Yeah.
But who is this for? Who in the world will benefit from taking this course?
Well, absolutely everybody, you know, at whatever time. And I've tried to write it. I like what you say, practical, because that's the bottom line. From what I've seen, and I've studied over the years and worked really reasonably closely with at least 4 spiritual traditions. I know my own Christian ground best, but I've worked in, you know, Sufism, Buddhism, some Hinduism, the Gurdjieff work too. And it's always about decision making. How do I know to go left or go right, go up or go down? In the classic spiritual bodies of tradition in Christianity, the Desert Fathers and Mothers, probably about 60% of the material, maybe even 80%, is discernment of spirits. How do I know whether this information in me is coming from the devil or from God? In the other major Christian method of decision making, the Ignatian method is a step-by-step method to lead us to listen to the voice of spirit. So it's out there, but you know, when you decide, are you gonna buy this house or not buy this house? Are you gonna marry this woman or marry this man or not? Do you send the kids to private school or public school? Do you, what? It's decision making all the way. And I found, you know, the essence of the course is that most of the methods of spiritual discernment that I'd been familiar with up till the time of finding this method really were focused towards, well, finding the highest voice, unmasking the ones that are false or pretentious or, you know, and then finding the highest and the truest and going with the highest and the truest. But I realized that never worked for me, that I'd find the highest and truest, and then the lowest and untruest and all the others that hadn't been heard would sabotage what I was doing. And so I wound up not only with a decision that wouldn't hold, but hating myself and saying, boy, I'm a failed spiritual practitioner. I can't even make a simple decision. And it took a long time to realize that the problem was not that I was a failed decision maker, but I was really trying to solve decisions and do discernment using an unrealistic grid. And when I found the realistic grid that worked, I found that I could make decisions actually pretty well, and they'd stay put.
And so many of the traditions just strive toward a higher spirituality, and then we look to teachers and think, oh well, they must know immediately what to do all the time. And it's been very reassuring to me to go through this teaching with you and to see that at every phase in our spiritual development we have challenges and have to make these decisions. I mean, you look at the disciples and Jesus drawing lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't that just be the easiest way?
Whatever.
But this idea that there's only one way to go and only one answer, you've given a more full-bodied approach to this, and yet it does involve spiritual practice and surrender and faith in order to be proactive. So it's not an either or.
Yeah.
But tell us about the spiritual practice and how integral that is to the Four Voices.
Well, I would say that spiritual practice is really integral because it's very, very edgy in spirituality. It's been edgy in spirituality for 2,500 years or more. Ever since the axial age shoved out the earth mothers. And we've lived in a kind of grid that's right or wrong, left or right, and the idea that there's a ladder of spiritual ascent and that we have to be climbing up it, and that lower is illusory and that we have to do it right, all of these things kind of put us in a trash compactor, so we get scared in decision making. It's got to be right, it's got to be wrong, it's got to... And spiritual practice really allows us to relax and be spacious, to restore a big mind that can hold all the pieces, and we can live our life like an explorer and an artist working in the medium of our life, rather than as somebody who's marching along on this path to enlightenment, and if you fall off it, you're doomed. It's a much more gracious thing. I don't know if it's like this for you, Kate, but I've found that anything done out of fear doesn't work well. And what spiritual practice does is it dissolves fear and allows you a much more spacious container in which to come to the natural sense of a situation.
In this course, you do a beautiful job of teaching the technique and providing examples from your own life that really make it visible to us, palpable. We can all think of times in our life we've had to make these decisions. And then you also teach the spiritual practice that helps us to embody and incorporate this teaching in a way that I think just watching you teach it on video I've learned. But does it take time to develop this? Is this something, it's not a quick fix, but a process? Or how can we look forward to learning from you on this course in a month and then taking it beyond that?
Well, what I've done in the course will have basically 4 segments to it. And the first segment is a little short teaching, 15-20 minutes, that goes over and presents some phase of the method. The second part is the examples that come right out of my own life to kind of prime the pump and get people thinking about, that was like that for me in my life too. But they serve as teaching examples. And then I give little slices of practices that come from the classic repertory of discernment practices. And you'll find them in traditions around the world. But things like meditation, embodiment, journaling, some of these practices that really help create and contain that big mind container. So the idea would be that if you haven't experienced these practices before, you'd be dabbling in them a little, experimenting with them during the course. And then when the course is over, you've got the rest of your life to work to perfect your technique, as it were.
Well, this is very exciting. We are so happy to be offering this course. I hope many of you will sign up, and we'll also have an opportunity to talk with Cynthia. We'll do a teleconference
Right.
toward the
And
latter
always
part of
that kind of segment, that online segment with writing in your comments and the
Yes, our
and the
student
writing.
forum is a great
Yeah.
place to interact. Cynthia will be observing those comments and commenting back and communicating online. The more we can engage, the more we'll benefit, I think, from your wisdom. And like Cynthia said, she's been developing this technique in her own life over the past 20 years and has just now been prompted to share it with others. And I can see great things coming, and I'm very thankful to be a part of it and to have witnessed thus far the teaching that you've given. I think this is in some ways just the beginning, that the feedback that our students bring to this course will move you forward.
I think so.
Sort of
Yeah.
describe this whole group as sort of the crew on that maiden voyage, where we co-create what comes next.
Yeah, we are co-creating. This is a wonderful experiment, and so I really invite any of you that are watching this video right now who might feel even slightly inclined to sign up and bring a friend. The price is right, the atmosphere is right, and I think we're going to have some fun. My hope in it, it overlaps certain kinds of spiritualities, and I didn't know about the movement, the teaching called voice dialogue when I did it. It has some similarities with that, but it's not the same. It's a very different method for getting all the diverse opinions and contrary currents in our being running in one direction without dismantling any or disenfranchising any, but trying to respect and listen and develop a sense of the meeting within, out of which we can move out into peaceful action in the world. So I'm really very interested to invite everybody to help break this a little bit more to fruition. It's pretty close to fruition right now. As I put this together, I think it holds together. It's not reading lecture notes off my shirt sleeve. I do have a thread in it. I know I'm going somewhere with it, and it's a good place to go. But I really look forward to joining in participation with others to make this thing a reality.
Well, we thank you, Cynthia, and look forward to the 4 Voices Method of Discernment with Contemplative Journal coming this May. Thanks.